Good morning and welcome back. This is World Talks coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Jastrzębska. Leaders of the International Paralympic Committee are facing mounting pressure after a decision that is quickly turning into a diplomatic controversy. Last week, the IPC confirmed that 10 Russian and Belarusian athletes would be invited to compete at the Winter Paralympics in Milan, Cortina, a move that has drawn strong criticism from across Europe and beyond. To unpack the fallout and what it could mean for the Games, we're joined by our in-house sports expert, Jon Carter. Hello, Jon. Good to see you.
Hello, Sally. Good morning.
So why does International Olympic Committee not allow Russian and Belarusians to compete under their flag, while the Paralympic Committee decided to agree to do so?
Yeah, well, the Paralympic Committee, effectively the decision was made by their members, and it seems that they would, their official stance is that politics and sport shouldn't be mixed together, we should separate it. And they have very much a more individualistic approach to it, whereby they say, the athlete should not be punished for the wrongdoings of their nation, let's say, whereas the International Olympic Committee, they've kind of maintained a sort of similar stance throughout. So just to clarify, as things stand, the International Olympic Committee, they permit the athletes to compete as individual neutral athletes, so not in any team sports, but they can compete with a kind of white neutral flag. Means that they don't get to have their anthem, they don't represent their colours. If they win a medal, their flag isn't hoisted, etc. Now, the Paralympic Committee has, pretty much fully accepted the Russians and the Belarusian athletes back into the fold. So they will be attending the opening ceremony, and it's become a lot more open to them, as I said, because they're a lot more individualistic. And we could even say that maybe part of that is back to their kind of origins. For those who don't know, the Paralympics originated in Britain post-war, where a kind of German-British kind of neurologist had the idea of including part of the rehabilitation of some people to compete in organised sport. And so maybe the kind of origins of this kind of play into this more individualistic, separate the nation from the athlete type mentality.
So when international sports bodies impose or lift suspensions, are they making moral judgments, legal calculations, or perhaps these are geopolitical signals?
Yeah, it's fundamentally, I would say it's kind of all three, because, when we think about it, first of all, when we say, is it a moral judgment? Well, I mean, clearly it is, because you can see by the kind of rhetoric that they're using, it's often saying things like, well, the invasion is, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is inconsistent with our values, so obviously very much a moral judgment that they're casting, right? Legally, yeah, because it's, okay, so here's the thing. In terms of legality, a lot of people question, why are they, Russians or Belarusians competing at all? Why do they put them, allow them to come in and but just give them neutral status? And, broadly speaking, it's because it's very difficult to kind of exercise a full legal ban, and it's much easier to just allow them to compete, but only under a neutral flag and neutral colours. So that's the legal aspect. Politically, of course, it's so entwined, the kind of geopolitics of all of these things. And, for even the International Olympic Committee, Paralympic Committee, beg your pardon, who are saying, it's all about the individuals, we cast aside politics. Yeah, no, it's all tied in though, because fundamentally a lot of things are boiled down to political consensus. And all of these kind of sporting bodies, whether it's the Olympics, the Paralympics, it's football, it's FIFA, a lot of it just depends upon what is the political consensus and how we're going to align ourselves with this. You know, if we don't align ourselves, we're going to get in trouble with our sponsors, maybe they'll pull out, etc. So it's all that kind of domino effect. So they're kind of treading the line, I would say, between these three fundamental things, you know, the moral, the legal, and the political. And yeah, maybe if I was being a tad more cynical, I'd kind of say, yeah, you know, they're not kind of even choosing between the three. They're kind of, you know, between the three, they translate the geopolitical situations into kind of legally defensible moral language, right?
Right, Jon, can you walk us through the general trajectory of sporting institutions regarding their permitting Russian and Belarusian participation?
Yeah, so I think, you know, from the beginning of Russia's, you know, full-scale invasion of Ukraine, there pretty much was a blanket expulsion of Russia, right? And so from that stage, we've kind of like gone through different stages where we kind of got into 2024. I suppose the next step after the 2022 invasion, full expulsion, and then we jump forward to Paris Olympics 2024. We could say, well, that was the first occasion where we have this the Russians and Belarusians can compete under a neutral flag. So here's a little bit of a leeway, you know, we're starting to see, oh, well, they're coming back in. And then moving forward to where we are today in 2026, well, we can see Paralympics, this is quite a substantial change, yeah, to fully allow them to come back in. They'll be, you know, at the opening ceremony, they'll have their own flags, etc. So it's kind of come a long way. And maybe we could also mention within this the comments of Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA. So obviously football's the kind of big global biggest sport in the world. So really what is said within FIFA and what they do is going to have big ramifications. And Infantino is very much kind of, well, you can see he certainly has an alignment with Putin and a kind of relationship there. And so he's also kind of taking this line similar to the International Paralympic Committee, which is, come on, guys, you know, these are just individuals and we shouldn't punish them for whatever's going on in, you know, whatever their governments are doing. And so, yeah, and this is kind of, we're seeing this in maybe some other slightly more niche sports as well. There was things like that within fencing, etc. So there is a slight, there is a creep towards allowing Russians and Belarusians back in, normalizing their competition again. But I would say on the whole, we're still, broadly speaking, as we were back in kind of 2024, where they can compete, but it's very limited, you know. Within football, not at all, you know, they're completely marginalized. Things like tennis, again, neutral. So you know, I suppose the big distinguishing factor is team and individual. So the individuals, a lot of individual sports they're allowed, team sports very much sidelined for now.
So despite the diplomatic tensions surrounding these games, how are organizers working to highlight Paralympic values like inclusion, resilience, global unity?
Yeah, well, I guess it's all comes back to, as I was saying before, they still kind of have this element of their origins. Like I was saying with, you know, it began back in Britain, kind of, I think like around 1946 or something like that. And in the Midlands. And, the idea is to focus on the values of the individual and allowing opportunity. So I think, this is very much the kind of statements that we're hearing from the Paralympic Committee now. It's give the individual the platform to compete.
Right, so Jon, let's leave politics aside for a moment and talk about what awaits us in these games, because they start in less than a week from now, right? And I must admit, they sound quite exciting. So we have over 600 athletes expected to compete across nearly 80 medal events, right, in 6 sports. So what should audiences be most excited to watch?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the most traditional parts, perhaps, of both the Olympics and the Paralympics is the alpine skiing. So within the Paralympics, this is the para-alpine skiing. And I guess it's interesting as well to tie this in from a Polish angle, because Poland didn't win a medal back in 2022, and when looking at potential medal hopes, we can see in the para-alpine skiing, which I think is, one of the kind of like at the forefront of the Paralympics. It's like the symbolically perhaps the most significant sport. Well, Poland does have a chance with Igor Sikorski, who will be competing. And perhaps this is like one of the more interesting sports to kind of look out for. And, because as I said, this is where Poland holds the chance. But there's plenty of other interesting things with this kind of para-biathlon. And you also have this sled hockey. That's right. So this is their version of ice hockey. We also have this kind of wheelchair curling, and as we saw from the Olympics themselves, that curling is very much exploding in popularity, and so perhaps that's an interesting one to look out for as well, because within curling, it's certainly they're not the Paralympians are less debilitated with their opportunity to compete on a similar level to the able-bodied Olympians. So yeah, this wheelchair curling, something to look out for. You also have the snowboarding. There's para-snowboarding, interesting event as well. So yeah, plenty to look forward to. We'll be kicking off coverage on TVP World as well from March the 6th.
Jon Carter, our sports correspondent, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sally.
And thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.